Hey there, Overbossity here. Gundam Evolution is a free-to-play 6v6 team-based first-person shooter game.
Can you imagine if I really talked like that all the time? This is basically Overwatch inside of mechs. I did not think I would enjoy this game. I can't help but open the game up over and over again and continue playing. So I want to tell you a little bit about it first before I tell you my likes and my dislikes, and maybe you'll want to play it too. Now, it's free to play, so it's not like it's that big of a deal. You can just install it and go for it. The other part I'd mention is that it is on console and on PC through Steam and the Bandai launcher on PC. There is no crossplay. When you play on PC, you're not playing with console players and vice versa. Let's get into what I like about the game, and then we'll talk about what I dislike about the game. The first thing that I like about this game is that all of the mobile suits feel impactful. Now, I'm going to say this is from the perspective of a casual gamer. I'm not talking about ranked or competitive. I think it probably matters a lot that your whole team makes sense, that you have support, you have a tankier role, and you have damages that counter the damages on the other team. And so you might be periodically switching your character, your unit in-game to match whatever you're playing against, whether you're attacking and whether you're defending and that kind of stuff. But I am talking about, at least for the casual gamer, you can just load up this game, pick any Gundam, and then you can do just fine. And sometimes I might say Gundam when I mean mobile suit or unit. Just pretend for a second that those are all synonymous when I say Gundam or mobile suit or unit. The next thing is that the game is very nostalgic for me to play. I watched Gundam Wing as a child, and that's one of the Gundam series, and that one's from the mid-90s or so. And there's been a bunch of different Gundam series over the past 40 years or so. So I think that anybody who's watched any of those different shows they have something they can come in and kind of associate with. Maybe you know about Exia or you know about Heavy Arms. You can go in and pilot that yourself and you can kind of feel what it would be like. And I think they do a good job to make it feel like you can imagine a mobile suit would. It's a little bit bulky and a little bit clunky because it's a big old robot thing, right? It makes sense. But at the same time, they'd still give you movement abilities and stuff like that. The next thing is that they have a claimed item history. So whenever you claim things like capital, which is sort of the in-game currency that you can get for completing certain challenges and stuff like that, and then maybe when you get weapon skins or unit skins and stuff like that, whenever you claim those, they get put into a list. You can go look at that history. So if your friend is like, how did you get that? When you're like, I don't know where I got that from. Well, you can go into the claimed item history to see that. And I kind of wish now that other games had that same thing. Next, it is, in my opinion, super easy to get into this game. I've only been playing for 20 to 30 hours, but I feel pretty comfortable in it already. I'm sure that I'll never be amazing at the game, but I can play it well enough. And I think a big reason for that is that I'm used to playing games like Overwatch and Paladins, and they have a similar kind of feel, and it's a similar kind of game modes. So when you go into the game, you have some idea of what's going to happen. Sure, there's new stuff you have to learn, but it's not a completely new experience, like a completely unique idea. And I know some people feel like it's a bad thing when one game clones or copies another. In my opinion, that's not bad at all. I think that just means they're saying that other game is really good and we want to make one like that too, and let users decide which one they'd rather play, or if they play both, switching between the two. I also really like that there are daily challenges and weekly challenges. There are also beginner challenges, and it's a little hard to notice that that's there until you click around in the menu for a little bit. The daily challenges and weekly challenges give me something to look forward to as far as like if I don't know what I want to play or I'm feeling spicy, I want to try something different, I can go to those challenges and I actually get something out of it when I specifically play the unit that they're suggesting I should, and then, if I need to win or do damage or whatever it is. So I really like being able to have something that kind of direct me of what to do if I'm unsure how I want to play or what I want to play that day. Just like in Overwatch, where you can set various settings and key bindings and such per hero, you can do the same thing with each of your units in Gundam Evolution. And I think that's important because various units you actually play differently. Some are a lot more precise, some are more area of effect and that kind of stuff. And you might want to have a different kind of reticle for each one, or maybe just different key bindings for the abilities and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty useful, I find. The next thing I think most people may not really associate with, but if you are, I'll say, of parenting age and you are going to have children, or you have children and you're thinking about letting those children play this game, I think it's a lot better than some of the alternatives in this genre, because there are a couple of things that are can be a lot more appropriate about it. Just like actually in Overwatch, you can turn off all of the chat. You can do the same thing in this. So party chat, what they call room chat, like all the in-game chat, you can turn all of it off. And that I find really useful because I don't have to worry about kind of like cyberbullying or If I don't want my kid to be reading a bunch of curse words or whatever. And I know there's chat filters and stuff, but you can kind of get around that sometimes. It's, inappropriate things that aren't actually filtered out. And the other thing is that there's not a lot of sort of inappropriate characters and how they're dressed and stuff like that. So if that's something that matters to you, this game doesn't really have that problem because the Gundams are basically robots, right? So they're not going to be inappropriate, and it's not an issue there. And the last thing I want to talk about as far as the things I like about the game is that it does have kind of the same feature as far as when a player leaves the match, that it will end the match automatically for everyone so that nobody has to continue suffering. My problem with it, I will mention again a little bit later, and that's that you can't rejoin the match if you get disconnected. So even if you accidentally, like your internet goes out, you can't rejoin. But I'll talk about that again in a little bit. So let's talk about some of the dislikes I have. The first thing, it is fairly difficult to get or unlock all of the mobile suits in the game, all of the units. This is probably the biggest complaint that I have seen people have, and I have the same thing, quite frankly. It takes forever to unlock all of the mobile suits or all the units if you go on the free-to-play track. So if you don't want to spend any money in the game, you don't have the money to spend, but you want to be able to enjoy it, I would say you can generally have a pretty good experience, but it will be a little bit frustrating to you to know that there's a bunch of units that you can't get. When you start the game, you have about half the roster unlocked automatically, so there's still quite a few choices that you can start off with. And then if you go on the track of leveling up and doing the beginner challenges and stuff, then you can get more capital that you can use to buy what I've gotten up to this point where I'm at level 19. I've gotten 2 extra mobile suits, 2 extra units. So you can unlock probably 65% of the roster after just 20 to 30 hours of play. But then the other 40% are, you just don't have for maybe 5-6 months, because each season you'll be able to generate more capital from the sort of season pass, even along the free to play track, that is, if you don't buy it. I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. It's kind of up to the game developers, how they need to make money. They have to make money from a free to play game somehow, and sometimes they just choose worse ways than others, and I think this is a fair complaint that people have. The next thing I'll talk about is the player base. This is a little bit weird, and I think I mentioned it already a little bit earlier, but the player base in North America and Europe is pretty low. If you look on the Steam charts, you'll see something like 500 to 1,000 people playing it at any given time. And while that it seems like is plenty for a game continuing to work, it's still not great because you can't do a good ranked experience like that. You can't have a small pool of players and have a successful competitive environment. It just doesn't work properly. So a lot of people have played on the Bandai launcher on the Japan servers, and that's how they achieve enjoyment out of the competitive experience in this game. And I would say, I kind of encourage you to avoid that. Like, I get it if some people want to, but part of the problem there is if everybody jumps ship and goes over there, then there's fewer and fewer people in North America and Europe. But I totally get it. So as far as a casual experience, I think it's perfectly fine in North America and Europe. But if you're looking for a competitive, maybe just try out the Bandai launcher. But I'd encourage trying to come back and play on the Steam launcher and stuff more often. The game is not super intuitive in the user interface as to where you would find certain things. I think they could have done a better job, and more than likely they will update this as time goes by. There are a couple of things that don't make much sense to me at all, though. One of them being that there are some beginner challenges you can do that will help you get capital, be able to get some things, unlock some stuff. It's a little bit buried, and it's over here in the bottom right where, you have to click between these tiles that all to me look like they have to do with us paying money. And if you're on the free to play track, why would you ever click on those? Why would you go to the store and look at stuff that you're not going to pay for? But between all that is some challenges that you can go do even if you're free to play. So that's a little strange to me. There is a use tickets functionality that I guess I'd probably just call it loot boxes or supply crates or supply pods, and you can get stuff like skins out of it and things like that, but you wouldn't even know it's there if you're free to play unless you go click through the store and find this used tickets over here, and then you can turn in your tickets and you get stuff. But it is not very clear at all, and that's a little strange to me as well. I don't know why they would hide that. Once you know it's there, it's not that big a deal. You can periodically go back to it and see if you've gotten some tickets that you can spend. And the last thing I'll mention is this is kind of ties back to the last thing I mentioned about what I like about the game, and that is that whenever you crash or you disconnect from the internet for a period of time, the game will close. Okay, it's completely closed on your desktop. If you don't have an internet connection, you can't open the game. And if you have the game open and you lose internet connection for any period of time, your game will close as well. And when you go back in, you can't rejoin the game that you were in. It's just going to automatically close after, a number of seconds or a minute or whatever. I think they need to add in the functionality that other games like Overwatch and Paladins have, where you can rejoin a game that you left. I would say there's plenty of times that people aren't trying to rage quit. They're not trying to leave the game. Something just happens and they crash or whatever, and they want to be able to rejoin. And I think it would be nice if you don't get any kind of penalty. So if you're able to get back into the game and rejoin and finish it out, then you get no penalty. I feel like that's something they will likely implement eventually, but maybe they just didn't have time or resources to put toward that feature. And they just kind of made it simple where it will end the game for everybody if somebody disconnects. So my overall opinion is that this game has a lot of potential. I suspect that it will never get there in some of the ways, some of the complaints that I and other people have, because it's directly related to them needing to make money because it's free to play. And I haven't usually seen game companies change their methods for how they do that, and so it will probably just not change. So if you can accept the fact that you may not have all the mobile suits or the units for, a good number of months, or you're willing to pay, if you're willing to get past that, I think most of the other issues will eventually get solved because it's just problems with the game, or something's less intuitive, or it's just a feature that it doesn't have. And so I would eventually expect it to have that stuff. So I encourage you to download Gundam Evolution and try it out if you're on Xbox or PlayStation, PC. And I'd encourage you to try to play on the region that you're from to try to help that region to have more numbers. In the end, it's really about your experience. So you play how you need to and where you need to. I hope this helps someone. Have a nice day. Also, what's with this game thinking I can only have 99 friends? What's the deal with that? You trying to say I can't make more friends? Or are you trying to say that if I do make more friends, I'm gonna have to choose? If I have 100 friends and I have to choose between all those friends, I have to take one of them. I say, you're not one of my friends. I have to kick them out because I can only have 99 friends. What's the deal with that?